Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of Hertfordshire County Council's Cabinet. I'm David Williams, the leader of Hertfordshire County Council, and I'm joined this afternoon by my colleagues Teresa Heritage, the Deputy Leader of the Council and the Executive Member for Children, Young People and Families, Derek Ashley, the Executive Member for Growth, Infrastructure, Planning and the Economy, Phil Bibby, Highways and Environment, Terry Duris, Education, Libraries and Localism, Terry Hone, Community Safety and Waste Management, Tim Hutchins, Public Health and Prevention, Richard Roberts, Adult Care and Health, and Ralph Sangster, Resources and Performance. Before we start, I want to make the following announcement regarding the arrangements for this meeting. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the Council will be holding this meeting electronically in accordance with the relevant regulations. Members of the public may also attend this meeting in an electronic capacity, and there is a link on the Council's website for them to do so. Members of the Cabinet are asked to keep their microphones switched off until called to speak, and to switch their microphone off once they've finished speaking. Cameras may be left on throughout the meeting if members wish. If you experience connection or other technical issues, it may help to switch your camera off. Camera should be on if and when speaking in the meeting. To indicate a wish to speak, members should use the raised hand function. Use of the meeting chat function is exclusively for voting. At the end of the debate on each item of business, there will be a vote. Members should vote using the meeting chat function by indicating for, against, or abstain, and I will declare the result after each vote. So the first item on the agenda for our meeting this afternoon are the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 14th of December 2020. Can I ask you to indicate whether you consider them an accurate record of our meeting by using for, against, or abstain in chat, please? Thank you, that's agreed. So the second item on our agenda, questions from members of the Council to executive members. There are none. Third item, public petitions. There are none. Members are reminded that all equalities implications and equalities impact assessments undertaken in relation to any matter on this agenda must be rigorously considered prior to any decision being reached on the matter. And then specifically for this meeting, members are advised that in respect of the debate concerning the Council's integrated plan, including the setting of the Council tax precept, the Standards Committee has exercised its power to grant a dispensation to all Hertfordshire County councillors from the requirement to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or declare no requirement for any councillor to make any declaration of interest in respect of this item of business. Members are reminded that Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 provides that if a member is in arrears of council tax for 2 months or more, and they are present at a meeting where the council's budget or the precept is being considered, then they should declare this, and any such member must not vote on any matter relating to the setting of the council's budget or the precept. The provisions of Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 apply even if there is an arrangement to pay off the arrears. So we come to agenda item number 4, Hertfordshire County Council's response to COVID-19. And this is a report that's been specifically prepared for this meeting and is now is a succession of such reports that are being provided to us as we have gone through the pandemic. So the report itself is an important matter of record in terms of the Council's response. I would just highlight that since the report was prepared, there have been some specific issues of import, which will be reflected in the next report. But importantly, colleagues will recognise that on the 4th of January, the Prime Minister announced that there would be a national lockdown. and that obviously those are the conditions that we are now conducting our business under. I think it's particularly important to note that as at the 4th of January, the date on which the Prime Minister made his announcement, rate over the preceding 7 days per 100,000 of population actually peaked on the 4th of January at 909, which had obviously seen an enormous acceleration as we went through the Christmas period and the New Year period, and no doubt reflected in part the impact of the new variant. And obviously there's been quite a bit of discussion about how that affected incidence rates across Kent, London and the southeast, and then also in the east of England, where of course we sit. I'm very pleased to say that that incidence rate of 909 on the 4th of January has now come down as of the 12th of January to 605. So we've seen a significant reduction, even though that is obviously still a very high number indeed, and is generating referrals to our local hospitals and putting pressure on our local hospitals. The other thing which I just want to highlight to colleagues, of course, is the progress that's been made with the vaccination of our more vulnerable residents. And vaccination started at the Lister Hospital before the end of the year, but then have been extended to the GP-led primary care network hubs that have been established around the county, and which have taken forward and accelerated the pace by which vaccinations have been delivered. But then also we've seen on the 11th of January, the new mass vaccination centre at the County Council's premises, Robertson House in Stevenage, coming on stream and making an important contribution to the priority groups which are now being vaccinated. So I just wanted to mention those two initiatives which are not reflected in the note and which are obviously very significant. But unless there are any points that colleagues want to make, I would ask colleagues to... Tim, are you in? Yes, Tim, if you'd like to come in.
Yes, very briefly, Leader. I think you've covered all the salient points. If I may, I'd just like to reinforce the message. Numbers are coming down, but we're still very high. Hospital admissions are rising at the moment, and it's very important that people recognise that and comply with the restrictions. The one other point, if I may, in a public arena, is to ensure that everybody is aware that the booking system for the vaccinations is running on the back of GP registrations. So if you're not registered with a GP, you won't be called for a vaccination. So if you're not registered, or any relatives of yours or friends of yours aren't registered, can I ask you to speak to them and get them to register as soon as possible? Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. A couple of important points there. And then can I also turn to Ralph, and then after that, Richard, but Ralph first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to draw the members' attention to the item under page 21, which is the schedule of our submissions to MHCLG regarding the Delta return. And the last one that was made in December shows that we are in this financial year pretty well square with the sums of money that we have spent and the sums of money we have received. But subsequent to that, we've also been allotted a substantial sum, over £20 million of the 1.5 billion pounds that was announced some time ago, clarification of our proportion of that. And that is being looked at in terms of our further commitments to the social care sector and other costs which we're incurring under the guise of COVID. But it looks like we are reasonably well covered for our future legacy costs. But of course, that will the outcome of that will be tested by the actual costs. But we are reasonably well positioned now overall to meet those costs that we're incurring.
Ralph, thanks for that. Richard.
Thank you, Chairman. I just very briefly wanted to add to the report and, in a sense, bring us up to date. As you mentioned, the second variant that came through really struck home hard in our care homes and other care settings. Those, for example, supported living, where we look after many with learning disabilities. And this has been a tremendous worry since just before Christmas. And continues. That pressure is with us, and it is obviously, as you said, with the hospitals as well. We're working really, really closely as a council through HCPA, that's the Hertfordshire Care Providers Association, and we're grateful for the grants that government have given us to double down on infection control measures and support to care homes. More than half of our care homes have had an infection outbreak, and some of them are quite serious across the county. The new variant is proving most challenging. But the really good news is, and I just want to say a big thank you to care staff. I also want to say thank you to the NHS for helping us as well to roll out the vaccination programme in care settings, where good numbers of care home residents and staff have been vaccinated. That number is increasing all the time. I imagine that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, most care home residents will have been vaccinated, which is extremely good news. The only other thing to mention is we invested something like £1 million in Nevets and Fairways to support those being discharged from hospital who may still have COVID symptoms or for whom care homes can't cope and required somewhere to help before perhaps hospitalisation. The capacity at both of those has increased significantly, and each week since Christmas, and that has been just an enormous boon, a safety valve, if you like, for hospitals to be able to help them to cope. I think that was a foresight that is bearing dividends now. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So if there aren't any other comments, I mean, it just remains for me to say that the public health messages are just very clear. We are in a national lockdown, and our residents should not be leaving their homes unless it's for an essential purpose. And then, as before, the messages about hands, face and space, keeping distances, particularly if one is having to go out and shop in a local supermarket, it is really important that everybody does wear a face covering and keeps their distance from other people. For those who've got symptoms, then there is a significant testing capacity in Hertfordshire for the more rigorous PCR tests. And the message there is to go online, book a space. And I know that it's frequently the case that people are getting appointments the same day, and indeed then getting their results back well within 24 hours. So if you've got symptoms, you really must get yourself tested and then self-isolate. The other thing which it's important to highlight is that with effect from Wednesday, in Hertfordshire, we're introducing rapid lateral flow testing using a bookable system that can be accessed via the County Council's website. And from recollection, the first of those sites which will be available later this week on Wednesday are tests on Wednesday morning in Cheshunt in the east of the county. But if you go on the County Council's website, for those people who are not symptomatic but feel they need to get a test, then those tests are now available and using the bookable system that the County Council has on its website. So coming back to the report, colleagues, can I ask you to indicate whether you are for, against or abstaining the proposal on the order paper that we note the content of the report. So that is noted. Thank you, Teresa. So we move on to the fifth item on the agenda, the Integrated Plan 2021-2022 through to 2024-2025. And Ralph Sangster, you're going to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. I think we would all agree 2021 has been a tough year. COVID has impacted our lives in ways we could not have considered possible, and it has tested our capacity to cope with one of the most disruptive episodes since the Second World War. Right now, we find ourselves at an inflection point in our COVID journey. The NHS is suffering from the direst consequences of the pandemic, whilst at the same time delivering the solutions that will finally overcome and defeat it. Over the past year, the Council has had to step up to the challenge of COVID. It has successfully delivered an additional £130 million of COVID-related services, while still maintaining the delivery of its core services residents rely on. The Council's finances for the current year remain positive, with spending under control, and once again, despite the unprecedented circumstances, a balanced budget outcome is predicted. As we contemplate the year ahead, we should recognise that the public health and economic effects of the pandemic have created a perfect storm for council finances. Many councils, as they launch their budget consultation plans, are including savings proposals that will cut deep into their services provided to their residents. Hertfordshire, thankfully, is not one of them. Because of a decade of insightful financial control, requiring some brave political decisions during a period of significant spending constraint, this year's integrated plan will be the most progressive and expansive for many years. We want the residents of Hertfordshire to be confident in the post-COVID future, and that the County Council will be investing in their priorities, such as sustainability, addressing climate change, and supporting key areas of service delivery. Over the past year, as well as dealing with the COVID crisis, the administration has been developing plans and policy initiatives that will address many of the issues which are of most concern to the residents of Hertfordshire, including responding to the local impact on our planet's changing climate and how we can best contribute to its health and speedy return to stability, how we can improve the life chances of our most vulnerable citizens and respond to the challenge of disparity and abuse that stubbornly remains in our society, provide support for our low-paid workers, particularly in those caring professions which have been so resilient through the COVID crisis, ensure that the spectre of future growth will not overwhelm us or our cherished environment, and manage this council in a way that ensures that the continued delivery of outstanding services for its residents without compromising its financial stability. This year's IP is full of optimism and expectation, Chair, which, given the depressing nature of the past year, is a sentiment we can all embrace. As the IP process, as we go through the IP process of scrutiny and approval, I hope it will receive the recognition and support I believe it deserves. So thank you very much.
Ralph, thank you for that. Colleagues, any other comments or contributions? Let me go to Phil Bibby first.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's fair to say that there are three main areas of concern with the public at present, namely flooding, 20-mile-an-hour areas, footways and cycleways. Therefore, I'm delighted to announce that we are proposing to invest over the next 4 years £10 million to investigate and fix drainage issues. I'm afraid to say that present drains, even fully functioning, are not fit for purpose with the rain events we're experiencing now with climate change. And we know this is causing a lot of disruption on the network, so we are investing time and money to try and fix as many problems as we can. £7 million to fund speed reduction measures to facilitate 20-mile-an-hour areas. As the Cabinet will remember, we've recently agreed our reviewed speed management strategy, which promotes 20-mile-an-hour areas in appropriate cases, but we do appreciate there can be a substantial cost in actually producing measures or introducing measures to reduce speeds, because signs alone don't reduce speeds. So we are putting £7 million to actually facilitate those schemes. Finally, £3 million to enhance our existing maintenance programme on footways and cycleways. You'll notice that some become impassable with ingress of vegetation, etc., not to mention the breakup of the structure of the cycleways and footways. So we are enhancing our programme to actually facilitate more active travel. I'm delighted to say that we got this money in the budget. Hopefully will be approved at council, but I just wanted to highlight the key areas, what highways are doing for the better good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. So I am going to go to Derek Ashley, then Richard Roberts, then Terry Hone, and then Teresa Heritage.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Just briefly to say how pleased I am with this budget proposal in front of us today. It will enable us to continue to proactively engage in trying to secure essential infrastructure for the county, with the local planning authorities and lobbying on the council's behalf for major infrastructure that we need to put in place to secure good growth. In addition, we've got some extra money in there for to boost up our fund for developing active travel projects, and of course through the enhanced partnership with the local bus companies, we've got a substantial capital sum to look at bus priority measures. Chairman, this is, I believe, the 32nd time I've been involved in the budget debate, and I can't remember a year where there's been such a positive and exciting set of proposals in front of us. I think this will be very well received by all those who are receiving our services out there, and I do hope that this will be supported wholeheartedly at council, and I look forward to the consultation. Chairman, this is a very exciting prospect we have in front of us today. I'd like to thank Ralph and indeed his predecessors over the years who have looked after County Council's finances carefully. There's a lot of advanced planning. These things do not happen overnight, and the result is we have a budget today that we're able to put in front of the public of Hertfordshire, unlike, I believe, many other budgets currently being proposed by many authorities up and down the county. I wholeheartedly support you.
Derek, thank you. And of course, I will note that you were one of Ralph's predecessors, as indeed I was at various stages.
I wasn't yes. Mention that, Chairman.
Thank you, Derek. So let's go to Richard Roberts, the Executive Member for Adult Care and Health.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Ralph and Phil. I think after the last weekend and the deluge and the snow and all of the water running all over the place, the fact that we're going to put more money into drainage schemes will be welcomed by residents right across the county. And if we could spend it tomorrow, I think that would be appreciated as well. Actually, I speak on behalf of Adult Social Care, and I think this is the most coherent set of financing backing the narrative about how we're going to support our residents that I've been involved in. One thing that COVID has shown is that if we work closely with our voluntary sector, we can deliver more in our community quickly and carefully to those that really need it. And that's why we're putting more money in this year to make sure that right now, but also following on perhaps post-pandemic, let's live optimistically. Post-pandemic, actually, we've got something in there to help our communities to recover. On top of that, last year we put all of our 2% precept for adult social care into domiciliary care wages, and that's really helped with recruitment and retention. And I'm hoping that this year's increases, which will be across the care sector, will also help in that capacity, pushing wages above the national living wage. I think there's a couple of things in here which are quite important. In reality, we're going to boost the safeguarding team to make sure that we can deal with safeguarding concerns more effectively, quicker, with less stress on those who are currently in safeguarding teams, and that's important. And also money into the transformation for disability services to help to really speed that along. COVID has interrupted that work, and it's essential in getting the right outcomes for those with learning disabilities. Most importantly, will be about finding employment and education and volunteering opportunities. And I think therefore the strategic work that's being done around day centres and day opportunities will be really important in that regard. I think, Chairman, that will do for me, and we'll have more at panel, and then of course we'll come back with scrutiny and of course back to the full council and cabinet. So thank you so much.
Richard, thank you for that, and also thanks for highlighting that, of course, at this time last year we were taking the decision that something like 12.6 million of additional funding was going to go in to support our care workforce. And to be honest, that's held us in very good stead as we've gone through this year and been able to ensure that the staff have been there and available in quite tricky times, it has to be said. And so with hindsight, that was undoubtedly a really important decision for us to have taken this time last year. So thank you, Richard. I'm going to move on to Terry Hone, the Executive Member for Community Safety and Waste Management. Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, in the IP, I noticed significant investment that we are making in both the services which I represent. First, initially, let me talk rubbish and talk about the House of Waste Recycling Centres. Following the success of the Ware Recycling Centre, which is absolutely fantastic and really serves the public in an unbelievable way without major queues, which is wonderful, and encourages more and more recycling. We're now looking to do a similar event in Stevenage. Stevenage is our biggest and our busiest site, House of Waste Recycling site in Hertfordshire. It really does need some investment in it, and we've got over £6 million proposed in the budget to invest in that Stevenage Recycling Centre, which is very, very good news for the people of Stevenage. Similarly, Welling Garden City, Turin Road, again, another £6 million in excess of that we're looking to invest there, and including the budget for construction of a new House of Waste Recycling Centre, which will again serve that community. There are other opportunities we're looking at throughout the county to improve and supplement the amount of availability of recycling centres in Hertfordshire. Let me say one thing, if I can, about fire and rescue. In the budget, there is probably the biggest single investment this county has ever made in one particular specific project, and that is the Jester, Joint Emergency Services Academy. This is going through the processes of being approved, and we have in the budget in excess of £13 million for this one-off project in order to maintain the very high standards of training that we have to have for our firefighters in order to protect the people of Hertfordshire. It's an investment which we see is absolutely necessary to maintain those standards, and is something which hopefully will get supported through the process, and we can come out at the end of the day with a joint emergency service academy with the police and perhaps the ambulance service as well, that meets the needs of the future of the people of Hertfordshire. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. So I'm going to invite Teresa Heritage, the Deputy Leader of the Council and the Executive Member for Children, Young People and Families, and then Terry Douris. Teresa first.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, if I might just say a few words around my main portfolio, Children, Young People and Families. Because of the difficult times we're having, and I don't think we can say anything different really, I'm very pleased to say that the Children's Services budget has been maintained, in particular to support those families who are finding it extremely difficult at the moment and going forward. Children have seen the biggest impact out of COVID, I think, and we are seeing that with rises in, for instance, children in a home where there's been domestic abuse. We're also seeing the impact on adolescents with more of those young people coming into care, unfortunately. But we will continue to support the prevention and early intervention services to try and avoid that. So I think that's the message I can give. We're there to support families, and that's really important, especially around neglect and poverty. However, as Derek said earlier on, it's a very exciting year ahead, 4 years ahead with this particular budget. And if I might, I could just speak to Sustainable Hertfordshire strategy, which I've been proud to lead initially. I think climate change and sustainability of the whole of the counties has a really important for all residents. And the items that Phil mentioned and Derek mentioned highlight that. But I'm pleased to say that a £10 million capital investment has been put forward to help us develop our Sustainable Hertfordshire Action Plan, which includes a 1.5 million earmarked for pilot projects for schools' energy initiatives and many other things. Still early days, but we still have to work up the plans, but it's really important. And we've also got in the budget a 2 million revenue bid to build up the teams to support the work we have to do. So I think it's really great that we're able to commit to something that I know in particular young people are really interested in, and that's our environment. So thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. And then Terry Douris, the Executive Member for Education, Libraries and Localism.
Thank you, Chairman. Like my colleagues, I'm very excited by this budget. I view it with great enthusiasm. In particular, I want to just draw out a couple of things. One is the £53 million budget allocation for special schools and specialist resource provision across the county. This is something that we have been requiring for a number of years, and working with my colleague Teresa Heritage, we're delighted that this is now going to come to fruition. In particular, I want to just single out from that the work that's been done in the special school strategy plan, which builds on the need and the requirement going forward for our young people with those particular requirements. And I'm delighted also to be able to mention the fact that the Valley School in Stevenage, which has the building of which is in need of refurbishment, is actually going to be completely rebuilt. And I think that will be a huge benefit and a huge good news story for everybody in Stevenage. And I'm sure my fellow councillors in Stevenage will be delighted with that. So the Valley School in Stevenage being rebuilt as well. So thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Terry. And if there are no other, Tim Hutchins, the Executive Member for Public Health and Prevention. Tim, I missed your hand up there.
Thank you, Leader. I will be brief as usual. I'd also like to join in congratulating Ralph and his colleagues and officers for producing this budget, because I think under the current circumstances it's magnificent. I just wanted to say from a public health perspective, despite everything that's gone on this year, there's been an awful lot of stuff that's gone on as per usual, and particularly around our focus on supporting the decrease in health inequalities in the county. And as we look forward in this upcoming budget, that emphasis will be maintained. Whether it be through weight management programs, through smoking cessation, or looking at the various impacts of COVID, where we need perhaps to look at some of the mental health issues. Reducing those inequalities will be a real focus next year. And we'll achieve that, I think, in part by increasing some of our staffing, and we're putting £1.3 million into that this year. Also, in part, we're going to draw down something from our reserves, thanks to some very careful financial husbandry over the years. We can add another 1.5 million into that. And in addition, we're also going to put another £1 million into supporting children's services. So there's a great deal going on. I think it's a key element of public health in this county, that we not only look at preventing poor health, but we also support those people that need a little bit of additional support, and that's what we'll do in 2021-22. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, colleagues, for those comments. And just a couple of points that I want to add. I do want to reflect what Ralph was saying, that this is not just a one-off. This is a reflection of sound
Sorry, David, we lost you.
and financial management. Okay,
Just start, I guess you start again because we lost your train of thought then.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my broadband is perhaps not up to yes, and I'm getting a message about the broadband quality. So look, if you can still hear me, I won't.
We can.
We can.
Yeah, I won't say any more than I need to, other than to say a big thank you to the officers who've worked on this plan in order to pull it together. So Cush, Scott, Stephen, Scott, they know who they are. Very big thank you to them. This process now goes forward with, firstly, there is a residents online consultation. So if any of our residents want to give us feedback on this plan, that they go online on the County Council's website and can complete a survey there. It's very important that we get that feedback from residents. And then the proposals in the plan will go to the service cabinet panels and the resources cabinet panel for consideration by all of the County Council's councillors. And then the proposals will go to the council meeting scheduled for the 23rd of February, and that follows the overview and scrutiny process, which again, all of the councils, most of the councillors are involved in. So that's the process, and thank you for your contributions, colleagues. We have two items on the order paper, namely that Cabinet agrees the draft integrated plan as the basis to seek feedback from service cabinet panels over the panel prior going to our next cabinet meeting on the 22nd of February, and then obviously council thereafter. And an important element within the integrated plan also that we are approving the release of schools budget data information to the Department for Education and delegates authority to the Director of Resources to make any final amendments to comply with and ensure submission by the deadline of the 21st of January. So importantly, colleagues, can I ask you to indicate whether you are for, against or abstaining on this particular item? So that's agreed unanimously. So thank you for your contributions, and that concludes this meeting of Hertfordshire County Council's Cabinet this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you.